everyone, this is Kayla from the Adventures of Kayla and Silas, and today I am here to talk about the things that you forgot to include in your vacation budget. I know for a lot of us, we get really excited about comparing flights and hotels, and we forget about all the little things that make vacations unexpectedly expensive, right? So I wanted to break those down, make sure you have everything on your list so you're not forgetting anything. And I'm going to go ahead and start by saying, when I plan vacations, I always start with my flight if we're flying somewhere because it's usually the biggest expense. And then I look at accommodations second. Those I think everyone looks at. They're not so much the ones that will be forgotten. But I just kind of wanted to go through an order for you. So definitely start with those two things. And then afterwards, we're going to start looking at some other items. The first thing I want to talk about is accommodations. Not necessarily the cost per night at your hotel or your vacation rental, but the other things. So you definitely want to make sure if your hotel requires you to pay for parking, that's on your list. If your hotel doesn't include breakfast, that's something to consider. But you can maybe make up for that in other ways or just buy some inexpensive groceries, something like that. And then also taxes. A ton of websites will list hotel prices just as the base price. And hotel taxes are super expensive, sometimes as much as like 20%. So make sure you know exactly the full price that you'll be paying once you show up. The next thing I want to talk about is other transportation. So you already booked your main flight from wherever you live to wherever you're going. But there is a lot of other transportation to consider. First, you want to make sure you know how you're getting to and from the airport or to and from the bus or train station. So I know for us back home, it's like an hour drive to the airport. So that's something I had to think about. Were we going to beg a friend for a ride? Were we going to park there? Were we going to park at a friend's house who was close and then Uber over or take a taxi? So make sure you know how you're doing that. In addition, if you are flying, make sure that you think about parking fees if you're going to leave your car there, and also baggage. People forget that in 2018, a lot of airlines no longer will give you complimentary baggage. So if you are checking a bag, make sure you know how much that's going to put you back. The next thing is getting around your destination. So once you get to that place that you're going, how are you getting around? Are you going to take public transportation like buses or a metro if the city has it? Are you going to rent a car? Or are you going to plan to take taxis or Ubers or tuk-tuks around? These are things that you should know in advance and kind of expect or make a estimation of how much you're going to be using those things and how much they will set you back. Another thing to consider, if you're going to be in one location for a longer amount of time, you might want to do I know when we were in Italy last year, we were in Rome, we did like a 7-day pass for transportation, and that actually saved us money in the long run, and it made it easier for us because we didn't have to buy a ticket every time we took the metro. Then you need to think about getting between destinations. For some of you, this won't apply, but if you're going, say, to Rome, but then you're also going to take a train up to Venice and spend a night up there, you definitely need to also include that train ride between Rome and Venice. And these could be flights, these could be buses, these could be a number of different things, getting in between those places where you're going to lay your head down each night. Or even day trips. Maybe you're staying in Rome, but you're going to Venice just for the day. Whatever it is, make sure it's in your budget. Finally, if you are taking your own car on vacation, so you're doing a road trip, or if you're renting a car once you get on vacation, make sure you understand the parking and maintenance, and even with a rental car, the insurance costs that you're going to incur on top of your normal rental car fee if you're going to be driving. All right, so now I want to move on to food. A lot of people don't budget for food on vacation, which I think is silly. I guess they're thinking, my normal monthly budget has food in it because I buy groceries each week and, it'll be the same on vacation. Well, it's not always true. So you want to make sure that you plan for all of your food expenses. A lot of people just eat out when they're on vacation. That's fine, but do understand that's probably going to be more expensive than your just regular week back at home. And then make sure you look up tipping wherever you're going. Make sure you know what the appropriate amount for tips are, or if tipping is even customary, and include that there. And then I always recommend for whatever meals you can to buy groceries and cook for yourself, or go grab fruits and veggies from the grocery store, and those can be your snacks during the day. And, if you're going to drink bottled water, bring water bottles, or if you are a Coke drinker, buy a whole pack of Coke instead of buying a bottle each time you go somewhere. So whatever you can do to cut back on your food expenses, that's a win. But do keep in mind there are other things to do besides just eating out. And also that it's probably going to cost a little more than just your normal grocery budget back home. The next thing is activities. So this is kind of the fun part of travel, right? And sometimes we don't really think about these things ahead of time, but there are some types of activities that you really should consider, third after your flight in your hotel. You should be looking at these big activities. And I'm talking about just the big stuff, things like I'm going to go scuba diving, or I'm going to take like a big excursion, like, a 3-day hike through a national park with a guide, or, I'm going on this trip because Taylor Swift's in concert. Like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to have a big expense alongside that activity, you definitely want to plan for that earlier rather than later. Other activity expenses that you should be thinking about are things like entrance fees and tickets, nightlife. If you like to go out, you want to make sure you have money to buy drinks and covers to get into bars and things like that. You might also want spa treatments or massage, stuff like that. Those are things that you should try to plan ahead for. And there might be other things that fall under activities that I'm not thinking about, stuff like cooking classes or things like that you'll find around the city that you want to do. And so do have a healthy activity budget. If you're going somewhere interesting, you definitely want to get to enjoy that place. So plan ahead for that and have some money set aside. So my last category I called all of the other stuff that you forgot, because there are all these other expenses with travel that we don't necessarily think about until we're getting hit with the bill. And so I wanted to go ahead and just run through these really quickly. So first are souvenirs. You can spend as much or as little as you want on souvenirs, but if you plan to go shopping for them, you should have them in your budget. Packing. So packing doesn't cost any money, but bringing certain things along with you on your trip might. So if you know you're going to need travel-sized toiletries, or you need a new bag, or you need hiking boots for that trip, or whatever it is, those things you should plan ahead for so you're not feeling like you're behind on money before you even take off on the trip. If you're going internationally, you need to think about passport and visa fees. Some countries won't require a visa, and some of you already have passports, so those are one of those kind of, if applicable, costs. Travel insurance, you should definitely try to get travel insurance if you're going on vacation. World Nomads is one of the main websites that will give you a good sense of what it will cost, but there are other options as well. If you want more information about travel insurance, you should Google it from someone else, because we are not great experts on the topic, but we do know that it's good to be covered so that if you lose something, or if your trip gets canceled for whatever reason, that you have a safety net. The next thing are internet and phone fees. If you're going abroad and you're going to want to access the internet or your phone, you will likely have some additional costs for those things unless you have a phone plan that already includes those. So do be mindful. And if you have, if you're staying at a hotel with free Wi-Fi, those are things to, definitely consider when you're deciding where to stay, so that you don't have to end up buying a coffee every afternoon just because you need to check your work email, whatever it is. If you're leaving anything at home, like pets, a mailbox, plants, a lawn to mow, do plan ahead for how you're going to take care of those things while you're gone. For some of you, you won't be gone long enough to worry about it. And for others, you might need to pay the neighbor kid to come over and bring in the mail and water the plants, or check in on your kitty cat, or whatever it is. Do plan ahead for those things. Obviously, if you're not bringing your kids with you on vacation, that's another consideration. Hopefully you have grandma and grandpa booked to take care of them, or whatever your plan is, but do plan ahead for any expenses that might require. Shots or medicine. For certain parts of the world, you'll definitely want to be prepared medically. We went for the trip we're currently on to Central and South America. We went to the local travel clinic in our county, and they asked us all these questions about where we were going, and then they gave us all the shots we needed right then and there, and told us about anything we should be thinking about as we travel in terms of our healthcare. And so that was very, very helpful. The biggest thing to be mindful about is the yellow fever vaccine. So for some countries, you will not be allowed in the country if you haven't got proof with you that you have your yellow fever shot. So that's the big one. The other ones are just things that you probably don't want to get while you're away, so it's better to have the vaccine in advance. Banking fees. I promise I'm almost done. Banking fees are the next big thing, and there's basically 3 types of banking fees that you can get slammed with when you're traveling. The first are ATM fees if you're taking out cash. So be mindful of that. Check with your bank what your rate is. And try to plan accordingly. We actually opened a special bank account just so we wouldn't have ATM fees while we were abroad. And so that's been really helpful for us. The next are foreign transaction fees. And this is what your credit card charges you when you are, this is what your credit card will charge you when you're abroad. A lot of banks charge 3% on every transaction. So you definitely want to look for credit cards that do not have that fee. We currently use the Venture One card from Capital One and also the Discover It card, and both of those have 0% foreign transaction fees and no annual fee. And so those are the ones that we go to whenever we're abroad and we want to purchase something so that we're not getting extra charge. And finally, currency exchange fees. I almost always recommend that you just take the local currency out using an ATM. That's almost always cheaper than going to the exchange kiosk. But if you're in an emergency and you need to go to the exchange place, do know that you're going to pay fees, whether or not it looks like it. Or if you're somewhere and they say, and you're at a restaurant and they say, oh yeah, we take US dollars or we take euro, they will take those things from you, but they're also charging you extra for that rate. So right now we're in Mexico. We were placed the other day, and the peso right now, it's about 19 pesos to $1, and the exchange rate at the restaurant was 15 pesos to $1. So they were making like 20 cents a dollar for anyone who was paying in USD. So do keep that in mind, especially for really touristy places. And then the very final thing, and really one of the most important things to budget for as you're planning for your next trip, is emergency funds. So I always recommend that you look at your whole budget for your trip and then you add another 3 to 5% just for emergencies. And this is money that's not meant to be spent on any of the other stuff I talked about. It's really only for that incredibly unforeseeable circumstance. So do set aside some extra money, or at least have access to a credit card with a balance that you'll be able to pay off later if something crazy were to pop up. So those are all the things that you might have forgotten for your vacation budget, and I hope that it was helpful, and I hope that you're not feeling mad at me for reminding you of all the extra expenses that vacation will mean. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out here on Facebook in comments, or head on over to kaylaandsilas.com, where I might have more information, or you can reach our email address there. Anyway, I'm Kayla from The Adventures of Kayla and Silas. Kayla, Silas, whatever. Wishing you luck with your upcoming adventures. Bye!